Hello everyone, today I'm going to be briefly recapping a very strong Eastern Conference so far to start the year and giving my thoughts on every single Eastern Conference team. If some stats and records are a little bit out of date, it is because this has been edited and recorded over the last couple of days, but the thoughts remain the same. Let's go ahead and talk about it, starting with the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks have had a bit of a shaky start to the year, but they've corrected themselves a little bit more over the last week or so. They've been much better at home than they have been on the road, which for as good as they've been offensively, but considering some of their defensive struggles, does make sense. But they have got some good wins at home. If they can start to be a little bit more successful on the road, then this team should project to be a team that has a chance to make another deep playoff run again in the Eastern Conference. Boston Celtics also currently sit at 11-10 as of the time of recording this. They are 6-4 in their last 10, and they've been weird this year. They started very slow. Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown have been hit and miss. They've had some good moments, but also some very bad moments and bad stretches. Jalen Brown also missed a couple of weeks due to injury. This team has the potential to be very good and one of the best defensive teams in the league. They started very much not that way. They had a stretch then where they were in and around the number one defense in the league, but have been a little bit inconsistent since then. This team has the personnel, if they buy in, to be a top 5 defense in the league, and if they want to be successful, they need to be. But they haven't been at a consistent level this year. Their offense just sometimes is too stagnant, especially when Jason Tatum is struggling. This team is best when Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown are getting the ball into the paint, kicking it out to others, and getting some good ball and player movement, because they have enough depth on this team that Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown don't have to do everything. Last year, they didn't have the depth. Tatum and Brown did have to do that. But this year, they have someone like Dennis Schroeder who can take some of the ball handling duties away from them, can do some of that playmaking. When Dennis Schroeder is aggressive, put the ball in his hands and get it into the paint and creating for others and moving the ball, that's when this team is at their best on offense. And that's what they need to continue to do more of moving forward, to get more involved in player movement to be able to be successful on offense. The Brooklyn Nets currently sit at 14-6, number 1 in the Eastern Conference. But despite that, there are some concerns about this group that I have, at least, and I don't feel like they're truly the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. Kevin Durant has been playing absolutely brilliantly, playing in and around an MVP level. James Harden has struggled though throughout the year. He has been playing better as of late, but it's not the James Harden we've been used to over the last 5-7 years, where he's like top 10 in the league at the very worst, or at the best an MVP discussion type player. He has not been that. He's struggled with the new rule changes. He has been still trying to foul bait stuff that just are not fouls anymore. He's starting to get a little bit more comfortable with that, but even then he does look a little bit out of shape. Injuries might be playing its part, but he has not been playing anywhere near as well this year as you would expect him to, and he has in the past. And so as of right now, Kevin Durant doesn't really have the help that he needs around him. Blake Griffin has played bad and is now out of the rotation. Nicholas Claxton is no longer with the team for the time being. Penny Mills has been great. DeAndre Bembry has been good. But then like James Johnson, now with Joe Harris out for the next 4 to 8 weeks, is someone who's playing like significant minutes for them off of the bench, which at age 34 is just not really something you want to see. So the Brooklyn Nets' depth and surrounding pieces around KD and the level of production from James Harden is a concern to me. But as of right now, they sit atop the Eastern Conference. The Charlotte Hornets continue to overperform, at least to a lot of people's expectations, but are pretty much right where I thought they would be. 13-9, 6th in the Eastern Conference, maybe a little bit above what my expectations were for them, but they continue to be a very good team at home, which makes sense for the level of offense they have and the lack of defense they have, and just continue to be held back by the fact that they don't really have a great starting center. Do they have a better one than last year? Sure. Mason Plumlee is better than Cody Zeller, but that's not saying much. Mason Plumlee still isn't great, and he's one of the worst starting centers in the league. LaMelo Ball has had a very good rookie season, continues to be very good, and has been more efficient from deep this year. Also, Miles Bridges is the most improved player candidate. He has tailed off a little bit since the start of the year, but he has had a very hot start since moving into the starting lineup. PJ Washington has struggled a little bit since being moved out of the starting lineup, but he's looked really good when he has started at the 5 the last few nights. Maybe that's what they move with long term, although their defense is definitely going to struggle with that. But it gives them a lot more spacing, as PJ's been shooting it really well from deep within that starting lineup. And Gordon Hayward has stayed healthy, which is a big success in of itself. The Chicago Bulls currently sit at 13-8, 5th in the Eastern Conference. Got off to a very hot start, had one of the bigger winning streaks to start the year in the NBA. have now dropped in form a little bit, are now 5-5 in their last 10. Of course, losing a game to Houston, unfortunately, the other night, and then to Miami, one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference. They're still a good team. There's no doubt about it, but the injury to Patrick Williams out for the year is obviously going to hurt them. They are missing some wing depth, some wing presence, and some wing defense. Not that Patrick Williams was anything great to start the year, but he's still an important piece of this team, and wing defense is always important, valuable. I think the Bulls are coming a little bit more back to life now over the last few games. DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine still continue to play very well, but DeMar DeRozan is not hitting threes at a absurd rate relative to the rest of his career, and although I don't doubt that maybe he could be a slightly better three-point shooter this year, this also wasn't the first season we've seen DeMar shoot better than he usually does at the start of the year, and then towards the back end of the year, he either just doesn't shoot threes as often or doesn't make them as much. That's not uncharacteristic for DeMar. Don't be shocked to see him start taking less or making less now and just relying more on his mid-range moving forward. I'd love to be wrong, but that's just kind of the way DeMar is. Nikola Vucevic needs to be way more aggressive with his shot and way more efficient. There's plays where he just gets the ball, doesn't even look at the rim, even though he has a good post-up opportunity, and just passes it away. This is a multi-time all-star. He needs to be way more aggressive for this team. He's been impressive defensively relative to the rest of his career, but offensively he needs to be much more assertive and aggressive moving forward. The Cleveland Cavaliers got off to a very hot start as they currently sit 10-10. They've only won 4 of their last 10, but they've dealt with a lot of injuries and virus issues. Lauri Markkanen missed some time, and Evan Mobley missed some time. Colin Sexton is unfortunately out for the year in his contract year, but Ricky Rubio has been a bright spot for this team as an offseason addition. He's been very good for this team. A six-man of the year candidate that won't get any recognition for six-man of the year because he doesn't have the counting stats that some of those guys do. Six-man of the year is often just whoever can score the most, but he's been extremely valuable to them off the bench. Good scoring, good playmaking, good defense, and good leadership for their young guards, specifically in Darius Garland, who has also had a very good year as well, having a nice step forward this year, especially now with Colin Sexton into the lineup. He has had to take a very good step forward, and he has done so. The Lauri Markkanen, Jared Allen, Evan Mobley combination all in the starting lineup has worked a lot better than I thought it would, and Dean Wade has filled in when Lauri Markkanen missed time, so they have fully committed to staying big in their starting lineup, and it's worked for them. They've had a fairly good interior defense because of it, fairly good rebounding because of it. Lauri Markkanen struggled with his shot so far, but hopefully that can get going. And all in all, it looks like the Cleveland Cavaliers might have a shot to get themselves into the postseason this season. The Detroit Pistons are pretty much where I expected them to be. They're sitting at 4-16. They've lost 6 in a row. They've won 2 of their last 10. Cade's shown flashes, but definitely is taking time to adjust as a rookie, as any rookie should, and usually does. His efficiency, not great, but he's shown the ability to be a solid leader, to compete on the defensive end, and to show very good playmaking instincts and high basketball IQ, and I have no doubt that there's a lot of potential there with Cade. Saddiq Bey has not played as well as many, me included, would have expected from him this year after a very good rookie season. Isaiah Stewart has shown flashes. Jeremy Grant, I know he may not get traded, wants to be with Detroit. Detroit want him, but it makes sense to move him and potentially get some assets. Ultimately, it's all about the future for Detroit, and I think they have some pieces here, but ultimately, it's just kind of a year where they're just looking to get another lottery pick. The Indiana Pacers have had a fairly up and down season. They currently sit at 9-13, 13th in the Eastern Conference, 5-5 in their last 10. Having been a little bit more successful in their last few games. They had a big win over Chicago, and they had another big win at home before and after that, if I'm not mistaken. But I still just feel like this team needs to make some moves. Sabonis has been fine. Turner has been fine. Had, of course, that big 40-plus point game, if I'm not mistaken. But they've still struggled with injuries, unfortunately. But kind of the way the Pacers have been, isn't it? They struggle with injuries. They're a fine regular season team. I don't doubt that they can get themselves into the play-in games or just on the edge of it. I did have them finishing in 11th in my preseason predictions for the Eastern Conference standings. And that's kind of just where I'm at with the Pacers. They're a fine team. They have really good pieces, but they don't have a great piece. They have a lot of depth, and that served them well this year when they've struggled with injuries. In terms of staying afloat, I think Torrey Craig has played really well. Karis LeVert, it's good to see him back on the floor, and he's had some moments. But ultimately, consistency with this group has been a problem. They're still adjusting to have a new head coach as well, but I don't really love where the Pacers are going, and I think they need to make some changes moving forward. So Milwaukee Bucks currently sit at 13-8, 4th in the Eastern Conference, but they are 8-2 in their last 10, won 7 in a row, since they have now regained the majority of their health, although they still are without Brook Lopez and Pat Connaughton. This team has played very well as of late. Giannis continues to play at an MVP-type level. Drew Holiday, Chris Middleton, Grayson Allen's been a very good addition, a very cheap addition at that. Bobby Portis has played very well in the minutes now that he has had to play with Brook Lopez out of the lineup, and they have now added DeMarcus Cousins, which I don't think is a super massive addition in terms of like big minutes he's going to play, but it's definitely a good depth addition for them as a big, because outside of Brook Lopez and Bobby Portis and Giannis, they don't really have any bigs with NBA experience on this roster, and having bigs with experience is always good to have. Miami Heat have had themselves a good start to the season at 13-7, currently sitting 2nd in the Eastern Conference. They have already shown that they are going to be a very tough defensive unit to score against. PJ Tucker, Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo is an extremely strong defensive unit. Tyler Hero is 6th Man of the Year and MVP candidate. He is arguably the best scorer on this Miami Heat team so far this year, outside of maybe Jimmy Butler, and even that can be debatable. He's been crucial for them down the stretch in games, in the fourth, in the clutch, you name it. Tyler Hero's been doing it this year on the offensive end, from 3, from mid-range. Extremely good scorer, and he is showing that to all of the levels this season. This is a very good Miami Heat team, has to be considered a contender. The addition of Kyle Lowry and PJ Tucker has been great. Good internal improvement. Strus, Gabe Vincent have picked up their roles this year as well. I mentioned also that Victor Oladipo is a member of this team and has not played yet at all. Martin's also played well for this group as well, an underrated addition. But I like this Miami Heat team, and I think they have a good shot heading into the playoffs. The New York Knicks tried to add more offense to their team this offseason, but it hasn't really worked so far. They currently sit at 11-9, but they have not played that well, considering they are at 11-9, 7th in the Eastern Conference. Their starting lineup has been terrible, quite easily put. They have one of the worst starting lineups in NBA history on a lot of metrics, or near at least the bottom on a lot of NBA metrics, and that's why Kemba Walker, as of today, the day of recording this, is no longer in the starting lineup, nor in the rotation, and Alex Burks, who's been playing small forward for them off of the bench, is now going to be the starting point guard for them in that starting lineup. Their bench has been very good. That's a big reason why they are 11-9 between Quickly, Derrick Rose, Josh Gibson, Obi Toppin, who's taken a big step forward in year 2, and Nerlens Noel. The bench has been very good this year, which is what's kept this team afloat. RJ Barrett has had a few good moments, but generally speaking has been disappointing. Julius Randle has been nowhere near as good as last year, nowhere near as efficient, continues to struggle with double teams, and ultimately is a fine player, but not anywhere near the level he was last year, and that's probably going to remain the case. Evan Fournier has not met expectations, and generally speaking, the Knicks just haven't met expectations if they're not from the bench. The Orlando Magic are currently last in the Eastern Conference at 4-17, and that's pretty much exactly where I expected them to be. Mo Bamba and Wendell Carter Jr. have been starting together in the front court. Wendell Carter Jr. wanted to play some more time at the 4. He's getting it, and he's playing well, shooting well from deep, and he's looking like he has very much earned his contract as well as he stayed healthy. Jalen Suggs has struggled so far in his early days of his rookie career, but it is way too early to start panicking about him, as I think he still has enough upside in the NBA, but it definitely is something to keep note of. Outside of that, and then just to wait and see. Jonathan Isaac and Markelle Fultz still haven't touched the floor. RJ Hampton has not played anywhere near as much as I would like him to have too, but he hasn't been playing that great either. Cole Anthony has been the big bright spot on this team. He's played extremely well so far this season. Missed a few games now due to injury as of late, but he is a very bright spot for this team. He might have a lot more upside than I originally expected. The Toronto Raptors went on a nice winning streak earlier on in the season, but they have now lost 3 of their last 10, currently sitting at the 12 seed, 9-12 on the year. Scottie Barnes is arguably the Rookie of the Year favorite alongside Evan Mobley right now, as he has been extremely good. Is way further along in his development offensively than pretty much anyone expected, and has superstar potential. That's the main thing for Toronto right now. Fred VanVleet has been the engine behind this team. OG Anunoby sure might have led the scoring early on in the year, and of course now unfortunately has been injured for the last few games. But Fred VanVleet is the engine that keeps this team going. He has picked up that role since Kyle Lowry now, of course, has left. And he's played extremely well. other than the fact that the Raptors' record is going to be poor, is going to be very much in discussion, or should at least very much be in discussion for an all-star berth, simply due to the fact that he has so much impact and influence on this team that shows up outside of the stat sheet. OG Anunoby's taken a big step forward on the offensive end this year and has played extremely well. Siakam's looked fine since he's come back from his injury. Precious Achiuwa has upside, even though he's had some up and down moments. Team Birch continues to be the most decent and just solid NBA player in the league at the center spot, as he's been very good for this group as well. Upside with Toronto, but ultimately not really going to be their year. The Washington Wizards, probably the biggest surprise the most amongst the Eastern Conference. The Wizards currently sit at 13-7 in the 3rd seed in the East. They've won 6 of their last 10. They've had a very good start, even with Bradley Beal not playing anywhere near as well as he has the last couple of seasons, as he continues to struggle from an efficiency standpoint. But Montrezl Harrell is very much a 6th Man of the Year candidate. He is playing much more like he did with the Clippers and he did with the Lakers. Denny Avdija has been locking people down on the perimeter. He's been playing just extremely well, as I mentioned in a video a few days ago. Spencer Dinwiddie has transitioned well and looked good since returning from injury. Kyle Kuzma has taken on a nice role, played well with this Wizards team, and the amount of depth they have on this group is just extremely valuable for the regular season. I do have doubts about how much will translate to the playoffs, but there's no doubt this is a solid regular season team. Lastly, the Philadelphia 76ers, who do not have Ben Simmons, have not Joel Embiid for parts of this year, as he's been out. Tobias Harris has also been out. Danny Green has also been out. The 76ers have not really had any guys around for all of their games this year, other than, I believe, Tyrese Maxey and Georges Niang. But they currently sit 10-10, which honestly is impressive considering the amount of struggles from an injury standpoint they have had. They've looked very good, though, when healthy, and they definitely look like they should be a playoff team. Tyrese Maxey has helped this group enormously. Having shooters around Joel Embiid alongside the production of Tyrese Maxey that has been replaced at the point guard spot with Ben Simmons being out is what allowed the 76ers team to be the number 1 offense in the league, or amongst the number 1 offenses in the league from a statistical standpoint before Joel Embiid went out. Tyrese Maxey has amazing upside, has been absolutely brilliant this year. Joel Embiid continues to play extremely well. Tobias Harris's play needs to pick up, but ultimately this Philadelphia 76ers team looks very good. Tyrese Maxey leading it from a perimeter standpoint. Seth Curry has also played very well, and I think they should look to be a playoff team again this year. That is my thoughts on a whole as the Eastern Conference so far this season. The Eastern Conference is back. It's arguably better than the West. There's a lot of depth. There's a lot of good teams. There's arguably 13 teams fighting for a postseason spot this year, and I can't wait to see it continue to unfold. That is my thoughts on the Eastern Conference so far, about a quarter of the way into the season. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below, and thank you guys for watching if you guys are still here at the end of this great long video. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.